First at 5, a recent string of shootings outside Portland area high schools could spell the return of school resource officers. The Portland Police Bureau and Portland Public Schools are discussing the idea. Good evening, I'm Laurel Porter.
And I'm David Molko, and that conversation around bringing back officers in schools comes a little more than 2 years after the program was disbanded. Let's bring in our Mike Benner. So Mike, any idea what a new program could look like?
You know, David, it's too early to say. Talks between the district and police are in the preliminary stages. What we do know is that there are a number of stakeholders who want a seat at the table, and that goes to show you just how important this issue is.
This was the scene outside Cleveland High School on Monday. Officers collecting evidence after a 16-year-old student is shot in broad daylight. It comes just weeks after several Jefferson High School students were injured in separate shootings near that school.
If there's one place in this community that people should feel safe above all else, it's the kids in our schools. And they clearly don't, and they're clearly exposed.
Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler revealed Wednesday that the Portland Police Bureau and Portland Public Schools are talking about putting school resource officers back in schools. Chief Chuck Lavelle, a former SRO himself, is intrigued.
Definitely, we are very mindful of the need to keep our kids safe in the school setting, and we're excited to have any discussions that might potentially lead to a return of officers in schools.
Community reaction to the idea is mixed. One woman writing on Facebook that SROs at her school only caused tension and picked on certain kids. But another woman posting that she thinks it's a great idea. SROs can give kids a little ease and someone to talk to.
It is proven that they belong in schools.
Sergeant Aaron Schmautz is currently the president of the Portland Police Association, but he used to oversee the SRO program. In fact, he was at the helm when it was disbanded. It was June 2020. George Floyd had just been murdered. Race and policing were top of mind.
It was one of those times that you'll never forget because you realize that something significant was happening.
Sergeant Schmautz thinks it's time for SROs to return to schools, with the right training, of course, because a lot of the violence we're seeing today, he says, involves people who experienced violence or engaged in violence as a young person.
We have to reach these kids young, help them, divert them from the criminal justice system, and get them off this pathway to violence.
The news is news to us.
Angela Bonilla, president of the Portland Association of Teachers, says this is the first the union is hearing of a possible return of SROs. Bonilla says the union does not have an official position, but what is clear is they want to be part of the conversation.
We understand that there are some folks in our community that feel safer when there are police, and there are also several folks in our community where police presence does not increase their sense of safety. And we know that in order to learn, you need to feel safe.
Nobody from PPS was available to go on camera, but they did send us a statement saying that they're looking forward to the continued discussions with the Portland Police Bureau, adding that they are committed to keeping schools safe while working with both students and the community to find a solution to senseless gun violence. Back to you.
Thank you, Mike. And we have new developments tonight surrounding Measure 114 in Oregon. A state judge in Harney County overseeing a lawsuit against it has delayed the magazine capacity provision from going into effect. The voter-approved measure would ban magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds. The judge is also keeping the permitting aspect of that measure on hold. The judge says more time is needed to determine the measure's constitutionality and for the state to be ready to handle the permitting process. Another hearing in the case is set for December 23rd.
Today, Clark County started a recount in the race for the 3rd congressional district. Republican candidate Joe Kent made that request after he lost to Democrat Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez. Now, the Secretary of State's office reported Gluesenkamp-Perez won by 2,600 votes, which means no automatic recount. So Kent's campaign has to foot the bill. It's important to note they aren't recounting every single ballot. Instead, they're looking at about 2,400 ballots considered undervotes. That is when a voter makes a choice in one race but not another. So they're essentially checking to make sure the ballot machines did not miss a mark, an intended vote, for example, one that was maybe marked very light in the race for that congressional seat. And speaking of elections, today Oregon Secretary of State certified the 2022 vote. Shamia Fagan called the process, quote, smooth and secure and without any major issues. State data shows turnout was just under 67% of registered Oregon voters, and that places Oregon among the top states. It is just below, though, turnout in the 2018 midterms, when 68% of registered voters in the state cast their ballots.
Today, Multnomah County commissioners unanimously voted in favor of a ban on selling flavored tobacco and nicotine products. It's set to start in January of 2024. Supporters say the goal is to keep tobacco away from kids and teens. Opponents worry, however, about the impact on businesses. Washington County passed a similar ban last year, but a judge overturned it. The county is now appealing that decision.
Let's talk about our homeless crisis now. Multnomah County commissioners also voted today to spend millions to keep thousands of people in their homes. Though at the same time, that vote also denied Portland's mayor what he was asking for, millions to support his plan to build large sanctioned camps in the Rose City. Tim Gordon's here now. Tim, we're about to see a changing of the guard at sorts at the county. Could the mayor still get that funding?
Well, David, it's possible. We'll have to see what the new county chair and board has in mind for 2023. But what we know now, the county has $28 million at the end of this year to fund homeless and housing assistance. And after a lot of discussion and some public political jousting between city and county, the board voted for rental assistance and not the mayor's camps.
A Multnomah County Commissioners meeting with a lot on the line. What to do with $28 million of unspent or over-forecast revenue from Metro's voter-approved supportive housing assistance tax. Several weeks ago, we told you how Portland city leaders approved spending $27 million on 6 250-person homeless camps. The mayor saying the crisis on the streets required a bold plan. He also said Multnomah County needed to cough up $21 million to help out. Today, county leaders went a different direction, voting to spend $15 million to keep people on the edge in their homes. It also puts $1 million to other services designed to get people into housing more quickly, and puts the remaining $12 million away for next year. The vote followed several hours of staff reports and public testimony, most in favor of rental assistance for 3,400 at-risk people or households, and not for large sanctioned camps.
I'm here today to share significant concern about any consideration for the city's encampment plans. As you've heard over and over and over again, that is not what is appropriate.
So just as one citizen to another citizen and to a panel full of women that have a heart and compassion for the next human, we have got to stick to the programs that we know work.
But not all followed that line of thinking, some saying outgoing Chair Deborah Kafori should have held off and let a new board decide the money's fate in January.
Perhaps the job should be for the county to work with the city to come up with something that is more acceptable to everybody. The status quo is not working.
Commissioner Myron?
Aye.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Aye.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
Aye.
Some commissioners said more collaboration is in order before voting unanimously for the rental assistance spending. And after the vote, a statement from Mayor Wheeler and Commissioner Dan Ryan said in part, "We are disappointed that the Multnomah County Board failed to fully fund our budget request for an initiative that has received overwhelming public support. Though our work continues. This is the right strategy for Portland, and we will continue working toward compassionate solutions." Incoming County Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson previously voiced support for the mayor's plan. Maybe that's for 2023. But on this vote,
I also want to clearly state that I am strongly supportive about the investments we're making today with these dollars. $15 million of which will go to rental assistance to keep individuals and families housed.
And again, there is $12 million left over that the board put to a contingency fund, and they also try to keep at least 10% in reserve with this type of funding. Laurel?
Thank you, Tim. This is an issue in Washington as well, where more than 25,000 people are experiencing homelessness. That's according to the state. That's why Governor Jay Inslee is proposing $4 billion toward building affordable housing in his new budget. Voters would need to approve this plan. The governor says the state's population in general and homeless population are both growing.
Fundamentally, it has occurred because we have not built the housing, the roofs that people need to live under.
The governor says Washington needs to add 1 million more units to accommodate the growing population by 2044. There's new information surrounding an environmental lawsuit against Monsanto. Today we learned the chemical company has agreed to pay the state of Oregon a whopping $700 million as part of a settlement deal. Kylie Boshi's live in the newsroom with more on this big payout, Kyle.
Laura, this is the largest environmental damage recovery in state history. At a press conference this morning, Oregon Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum called it a huge win for our state. The $700 million settlement stems from a lawsuit filed by Oregon against Monsanto in 2018, claiming the company's products polluted the state for 90 years until PCBs were finally banned in the 1970s. Highly toxic PCBs were used in paint, coolant, sealants, and hydraulic fluids. They still contaminate Oregon's landfills and riverbeds and show up in fish and wildlife. Oregon's Attorney General said the $700 million settlement will help monitor, investigate, and clean up the damage from PCBs.
At its root, this case has always been about protecting the most vulnerable people in Oregon and restoring the environment that makes Oregon so special.
Monsanto was acquired by German chemical and pharmaceutical company Bayer AG in 2018. In a statement, Bayer said the settlement over, quote, legacy Monsanto PCB products fully resolves all of Oregon's claims, and the agreement contains no admission of liability or wrongdoing by that company.
Making history with that settlement. Thank you, Kyle.